Am I wrong for not spending my inheritance on a new car for my fiancé? I honestly didn't know how to handle this, and I'm feeling conflicted. I'm 29 and my fiancé is 30. We've been together for 5 years, and I thought we understood each other well, but this situation is making me question that. Both of my parents are gone now. My dad passed away 10 years ago from cancer. It happened quickly, diagnosed in March, gone by August. My mom held things together after that, but 5 years ago she had a heart attack at home. I tried CPR, but it didn't work. I don't talk about it much, but that's the gist of it. When my mom passed, her estate was split evenly between my sister and me. It wasn't a large sum, but it made a difference. My sister used hers to pay off her student loans and put a down payment on a house. I've saved most of mine because I always felt like it was something special, like a piece of my parents that I didn't want to lose. Recently, I got a surprise check in the mail, a pension payout from my dad's old company. It wasn't life-changing, but it was a decent amount, enough to cover a year's living expenses. I was shocked, staring at the check, feeling like it was one last gift from my dad. When I told my fiancé, I thought he'd be supportive or at least happy for me. Instead, his first words were, "Oh, cool, now you can finally help me get that car." I thought he was joking and laughed, but he wasn't. He said, "Why would you waste it on a wedding? A wedding's just one day. A car we can use every day." I was caught off guard. We got engaged in June, had a beautiful proposal in Mexico, and since then, we've put wedding plans on hold to save for a house. I thought this money would help us finally start planning, but my fiancé was set on getting a new car. He drives an older one that has some issues, but still runs fine. I bought my own car last year with my own savings and have been paying the monthly installments without asking for help. So I told him if he really wanted a new car, he should save for it, just like I did. He looked at me like I was crazy. "Why save when you've got the money right there?" he said. That's when I realized he didn't see this as my money. He saw it as our money. We've always kept our finances separate, each paying our share of the household expenses, but this felt different. I was frustrated and told him that this money wasn't just about him or his car. It was about my parents and what they left behind. He countered, saying, "Isn't building a life together what we're supposed to be doing?" That shut me up for a second, but it didn't change the fact that this money was special to me. The conversation ended with him saying, "Fine, do whatever you want with it, but don't come to me when you need help paying for something down the road." I was stunned. I've never asked him for financial help before, and suddenly he's making it sound like I'm being unreasonable. A week passed, and things were awkward, but we didn't really talk about it. Then, over the weekend, he casually brought up cars again. He'd been looking at some dealerships and said we should go check them out together. I reminded him we'd already discussed this, and I wasn't using that money for a car. He called me selfish for hoarding it, and that's when I lost my temper. "How is asking me to use my inheritance for something you want not selfish?" I asked. He tried to argue that a car was practical, something we both needed. I told him I didn't need a new car, he did, and if it was that important, he should save for it. That evening, I tried explaining again. I told him this money wasn't just extra cash like he thought. It was the last thing I'd ever get from my parents, and it meant something to me. He sighed and said, "You're making this too emotional." "It's just money," I snapped. "It's not just money, it's a piece of them." Our discussion ended with him storming out, and after that, he was passive-aggressive, making comments like, Must be nice to have parents who leave you a safety net. It felt exhausting. Every time I try to talk to him, he either gets defensive or tries to guilt trip me. He brought up the car again while we were grocery shopping, but I shut it down. I told him this wasn't about money, it was about respect for what it meant to me. The tension's been building, and I'm feeling more and more like there's a wedge between us. Every conversation about this turns into a fight, and I'm left wondering, am I being selfish for standing here holding on to some old idea of how things should be instead of focusing on what's best for us? I said, what's best for us is respecting each other's boundaries. I'm not telling you how to spend your money, so stop trying to control how I spend mine. He got up from the couch, his frustration obvious. This isn't just about money, it's about trust. If you really trusted me, you wouldn't have such a problem helping me out. I shot back. This isn't about trust. It's about you feeling entitled to something that's not yours. Without another word, he left the room. The next morning, he seemed to be in a better mood, or at least pretending to be. I thought maybe we'd turned a corner, but then came his snide comment at breakfast. While I was eating toast, he muttered, "Must be nice to have a cushion like that. Some of us don't have that kind of safety net." I put my fork down, my frustration building. Are we really doing this again? He shrugged. I'm just saying, not all of us get handed a free pass. I stood up, my voice steady but firm. If that's how you see it, maybe we have bigger problems than money. He replied with a cold, "Yeah, maybe we do," and left. I grabbed my keys, walked out without a word, and drove to my sister's house. When I got there, she asked what was going on. I told her everything. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You need to be careful. This isn't about the car, it's about control. If you let him win this time, it won't stop here." I didn't want to believe her, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. I started to wonder how we'd ended up here. We were supposed to be a team, but it didn't feel that way anymore. When I got home later, he was sitting in the living room watching TV as if nothing had happened. I put my bag down and asked, "Are we going to talk about this? Or are you just going to keep ignoring me?" He muted the TV but didn't look at me. What's there to talk about? You've made it clear that I don't have a say in anything. I sat down across from him, my voice calm but firm. This isn't about you having a say. It's about you crossing my boundaries. He looked up, his frustration clear. Boundaries? We're supposed to be building a life together, but you're acting like I'm some stranger asking for a handout. I shot back. No, I'm acting like someone who doesn't want to be told what to do with something that's mine. You don't get to decide how I spend my inheritance. He threw the remote on the table, his frustration spilling over. Fine, keep it, but don't act like I'm the bad guy for trying to make our lives better. I asked, better for who? Because this doesn't seem to have anything to do with me. He stood up, pacing. You're impossible. You're acting like I'm asking for something outrageous when all I want is to solve a problem we both have. I followed him into the kitchen. What problem? My car works just fine, and so does yours. He grabbed a beer from the fridge and slammed the door. You don't get it. You're so stuck on your principles that you can't see the bigger picture. I crossed my arms. What bigger picture? From where I'm standing, the only thing you care about is getting a new car. He turned to me. Yeah, because it's something we need. God forbid I try to make things easier for us down the road. I said, we don't need it. You want it. That's a big difference. He didn't respond. Instead, He walked out of the kitchen and went upstairs. That night, we barely spoke. I went to bed early, and he stayed up scrolling through his phone and watching TV. I could hear him laughing at something, and it made me even more frustrated. The next day, I tried again. What if we start setting some goals for the wedding? Just something small to get us back on the same page? We could look at venues this weekend, just to get an idea of what we want. He rolled his eyes. Why are you so obsessed with the wedding? It's not like we're in a rush. I answered, I'm not obsessed. I just want to start planning. We've been engaged for months and haven't done anything about it. He responded, because we don't have the money. We both agreed to wait until we were in a better place financially. I said, we're in a better place now. That's what this money is for. He laughed. No, that's what you think it's for. I think it's a waste. I asked, so, what? You think we should just never get married and live like this forever? He shrugged. I don't see why not. A piece of paper doesn't change anything. That hit me hard. Then, why did you propose? If you don't care about getting married, why even bother asking me? He didn't answer. He just got up and left the room. Later that evening, he came downstairs and tried to act normal. He sat next to me on the couch and asked, "What are you watching?" I didn't answer. I just stared at the screen, pretending to be engrossed in the show. After a few minutes, he sighed. Look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that about the wedding. I paused the TV. Then, what do you want? Because it feels like we're not even on the same team anymore. He said, I want us to work together. I just don't think it makes sense to blow a chunk of money on one day when we have other things to worry about. I said, it's not just about the wedding. It's about the way you're acting, like I owe you something just because we're engaged. He said, I'm not saying you owe me anything. I'm just asking you to consider what's best for both of us, not just you. I said, I am considering both of us. That's why I want to use this money for our wedding. It's about us, not just me. He didn't respond. He just sat there, staring at the floor. After a while, he got up and went outside without a word. The next morning, he was already up when I came downstairs. He was sitting at the table with a cup of coffee, looking through his phone. I poured myself a cup and sat down across from him. We sat in silence for a while, and the tension in the room felt thick enough to cut. Finally, I broke the silence. Are you going to keep sulking, or can we talk like adults? He didn't look up from his phone. I'm not sulking. You're the one making this a big deal. I set my cup down harder than I meant to. How am I making this a big deal? You've been acting like a child for days over something that isn't even your decision. He looked up. It's not just about the decision. It's about what it means. If we're supposed to be partners, why do you keep acting like this doesn't affect me too? I said, because it doesn't. This money is from my parents. It has nothing to do with you. He leaned back in his chair. That's exactly my point. You keep saying it's your money, your parents, like I'm some outsider. I stared at him. That's because you are. When it comes to this, it's about me and what my parents left for me. You don't get to claim it just because we're engaged. He shook his head. You don't see how messed up that is. We're supposed to be building a life together, but you're over here drawing lines like it's every man for himself. I stood up. You're the one making this about sides. I've told you from the start that this money isn't up for discussion. You're the one who keeps bringing it up, not me. He didn't respond. I walked out of the kitchen and went upstairs to get ready for work. That evening, when I got home, he was working on his car in the garage. I walked in. Are you ready to have a real conversation, or are we just going to keep pretending everything's fine? He closed the hood of the car. What do you want me to say? You've already decided everything. There's nothing left to talk about. I said, there's plenty to talk about, like the fact that you're acting like I'm the bad guy for setting boundaries. He crossed his arms. Boundaries? You're using that word like it's some kind of shield. This isn't about boundaries. It's about trust, and clearly, you don't trust me. I could barely keep my voice steady. This has nothing to do with trust. It's about you not respecting me or my decisions. He threw his hands up. Fine. You win. Keep your money. Do whatever you want with it. Just don't expect me to care anymore. I didn't know how to respond, so I turned around and walked back into the house. That night, we barely spoke. The next morning, when I tried to talk to him, he said, "What's the point? We're just going to go around in circles." I said, "The point is we're supposed to be a team. And right now, it doesn't feel like we are." He laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. A team? That's rich, coming from you. Teams share things. They don't hoard what's theirs and act like the other person doesn't matter. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I'm not hoarding anything. I'm setting a boundary, and you refuse to respect it. He shook his head. Whatever. I'm done talking about this. For the rest of the week, things stayed tense. He made little comments here and there, like, "Must be nice to have money to fall back on," or, "Guess I'll just keep driving my piece of junk until it falls apart." Every time he said something like that, I ignored him. I didn't see the point in engaging anymore. I reached out to my sister again. You need to think long and hard about this. If he's acting like this over a car, what's he going to be like when bigger issues come up? Her words stuck with me. I started to look at everything differently. It wasn't just about the money or the car anymore. It was about how he handled conflict, how he tried to guilt trip me, how he refused to respect my boundaries. That weekend, I decided to confront him one last time. I sat him down. We need to figure this out, because I can't keep living like this. He looked at me. What's there to figure out? You've already made it clear you don't care about what I need. I said, that's not true, and you know it. I care about what you need, but I'm not going to sacrifice something important to me just to make you happy. He said, then what's the point? If you're not willing to compromise, why even bother talking? I stood up. Maybe we shouldn't be talking about a future together at all, if this is how it's going to be. He didn't answer. He just stared at me, like he couldn't believe I'd said that. After a long silence, he finally said, so that's it? You're just going to throw everything away because I asked for a little help? I said, I'm not throwing anything away. I'm setting a boundary. If you can't respect that, then maybe we're not as compatible as we thought. He didn't respond. He just walked out of the room, and I haven't seen him since. Now I'm sitting here, wondering if I made the right decision. Part of me feels like I did, but another part of me is scared I've ruined everything. Commenter 1. This is a massive red flag. If he's acting like this now, imagine how he'll act once you're married. Ops reply, yeah, that's been on my mind a lot. It's not just about the car. It's the way he's handling the whole thing. Commenter 2. He's showing his true colors. Protect your inheritance. You'll regret it if you give in. Ops reply, you're probably right. It's just hard because I didn't expect this from him. Commenter 3. Run. He's already treating your money like it's his. It'll only get worse. Ops reply. Thanks for saying that. I'm starting to feel the same way. Commenter 4. Stand your ground. If he really loves you, he'll get over it. If not, then good riddance. Ops reply. Thank you. I'm trying to stay strong, but it's tough. Commenter 5. Ask yourself if this is the person you want to build a life with. He's not acting like a partner. Ops reply. I've been thinking about that a lot. I'm scared of what this says about our future. Thanks. Outro. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I'll see you next time. My ground, or is this a red flag in our relationship?